Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, the Cage Free Radio Network, Refugees and Immigrants. If you guys are new to this channel, my name is Moyo and I'm from Nigeria and I'm here to take you on this journey. So today we're going to be talking about culture and language barriers that immigrants and refugees face. And we have a very special guest today, and her name is Madelaine Akinyele. She is a third year nursing student at Drexel University. After migrating to the United States in 2017 with her family, she has worked in several industries, including the healthcare, and currently works as an ICU nursing assistant. Outside of school and work, Madeline loves to plan events and hopes to start her own event planning agency and sometime in the future. So let's welcome Madeline Akinyele to the stream.
Hi,
Hi
Moyo.
Madeline,
Thank you
how
so
are
much for
you?
having me. I'm good, thank you. How are you
Okay,
doing?
I'm fine. So do you want to tell the audience about yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Madeline. Everybody calls me Mading. I was born in Nigeria and I moved to Philadelphia, USA, in 2017, I believe. So I've been in the US for about 5 years. I currently study nursing at Drexel University and I'm currently finishing up my third year, actually. I still my fourth, so I'm hoping to graduate about June next year, mid-June. Like Moyo mentioned, outside of school, I love to plan events, big scale, small scale. That's my thing. I guess the pressure of like having to make sure the event is successful kind of like powers my adrenaline. So I love that. Um, Currently, I'm like looking into other fields kind of nursing and event planning. Maybe I'll go into tech one day. But one thing about me is I don't like restrict myself to one role or one field. So if I see any opportunities outside of nursing or healthcare, I will gladly take it.
Okay, so viewers are very excited to hear on your views on culture and language barriers. But first, I always ask my guests a common question, which is what is your definition of being cage free and unlimited in our society?
I do think that when I think of being cage free, I think of breaking from societal expectations. As an individual, depending on your race or ethnicity or your gender, there's a kind of expectation that the world expects of you. So whether you're a woman, you're a black woman, they expect you to stay in certain fields, in certain molds. But when you're cage free, you don't conform to whatever they expect of you. You define your own lane, your own path, and that's what I think like being cage free means.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Just like being free as a person and expressing your own creativity, I think
Hmm.
that's what K3 is as well. So before we get into the whole cultural and language barriers, the viewers would want to know what was your like first-hand experience in America, like the good sides, the bad sides about it when you first migrated from Nigeria.
Yeah, definitely. I would say coming from Nigeria, the kind of media we're exposed to about America is like the white picket fence. Everybody has
True.
an amazing mansion, two children with a dog. And it just looks so perfect. And then when I had moved to Philadelphia in 2017 and I came from New York from the airport. And my first interaction with the US was like, it looked like somewhere in Dubai, but I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dubai, but like let's say like somewhere like Oshodi in Lagos. Like that kind of like environment. So I wasn't exactly like aware that I would see something like that. Can you still hear me? Hey Moyo, can you still
Um,
hear me?
I can hear you now. Sorry, the
Okay,
whole
sorry. I thought
internet.
we had a little break in tech, but
Uh,
like I was saying, are we still good?
oh,
Can you
okay,
hear
I
me
can
now?
hear you now.
Okay,
Sorry. I
so
think
yeah.
the switch. Okay, so you can
Oh,
continue.
okay. But yeah, so I'll just start over from where you left off. So you were asking what my first experience was like being in America. And I was saying that with American media that we're exposed to like in Nigeria, everybody has like a perfect life, has a mansion with two dogs and two children and a white picket fence. And when I moved to Philly, Philly looked like somewhere out of, because I grew up in Ibadan actually. I lived in Ibadan for 16 years.
Oh,
And Philly looked like some rural part of Ibadan. Like I was in Dubro, I was in Oshodi. If you know what Oshodi looks like, that's what Philadelphia looks like. And I was like, is this America? Because it just felt we had like feel one thing about Philly, like they have row houses, so all that's like connected to each other. And I'm like, where's even your
oh.
backyard space? Nothing like that. Because come to Ibadan,
No backyard space.
we had a big compound in Ibadan. And I was like, oh my god, this is America. And that was like my first intro to the fact that the US wasn't just like one single picture. It was like different facets to it, and like they only picked the good parts to show us in
On
Nigeria
TV.
on TV. So yeah, that was definitely like my first shock when I moved here.
So I feel so strange, like knowing about that, because even in my head, America is like the place to be, like the where your American dream is.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
know,
will say that
so
there's
it feels so.
definitely you can definitely like get that here, but there's not that initial shock that you feel. I'm very sure every like immigrant has that common experience, because when you look at the media, you don't about America, you don't see garbage in the streets. You do not see maybe gun violence or things like that. And then you move there and you're like, what? What do you mean? There's garbage in the streets, the buses are overcrowded, people are fighting. Like, am I back in Lagos or something? That was definitely that was that was like an initial, but once you get over that initial shock, you can like start finding ways to like get out of that environment and like actually being like that whole American dream.
Yeah, it's just about different environments. I'm sure, like in
Mm-hmm.
different states, it won't be like that. Like I'm
Exactly.
sure
Oh yeah,
California,
definitely. Even in Philly, Seth, there's still like parts that you're like, okay, or these are the suburbs. Like,
this is
this
nice.
is nice. Like, okay, I want to be here. And then like when like went to I got to Cali a few months ago, and I was like, I'm gonna have to move to California because it was just like different environment. Even the air just felt different. So yeah, just like different parts are like what you see in the media. There's some parts are like the kind of parts that like hide away, that you don't expose you to if you're actually moving.
Okay, so like moving on to like the culture and language barrier. So like I know in Nigeria, like it's a flowing pot of culture, not only like Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, but different tribes, different culture coming together. And you
Mm-hmm.
know, once you're moving about in Nigeria, everybody is kind of teaching you about your culture and your ethnicity. But in like an America like society where it's predominantly like English, posh, if I could
Mm-hmm.
say, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not really surrounded by Nigerian people, what were like the hindrances or like the difficulties you faced when learning your ethnicity and culture?
Thank you for asking that. So when I moved to the US, like I mentioned, I moved to West Philadelphia. West Philadelphia is like predominantly black, so that wasn't like a
Mm,
shock to me. I just saw people who looked like me, but one thing that they were very quick to point out was that I did not sound like them. While I spoke the same
for
language as
sure.
them, we all spoke English, so but my accent. So I started high school because when I moved there, they were like, "Oh, you have to go back to high school, whatever." So I went back to 11th grade, even though I was already done with SS3. I already was WAEC, road jam. They were like, "Oh, I have to go back to 11th grade so I
Ah,
can write SATs." Go to, I said, "Okay." So I went back to 11th because I was still 16. I was like, "Sure, I still have like 2 years to get it over with." Went back to 11th grade. Started school. The kids were fairly nice, but like they were the ones that there were some that would remind you like, "Oh, you said I can't hear." I'm like, "How can you not hear me? I can't hear you. But you're speaking through your nose. Like you're not pronouncing your words completely. So what do you mean you can't hear me?" And like I remember one very, very annoying incident that I think we're like a chemistry class or something. I was doing my work. And the boys behind me were like, "Oh, can you help me with my work?" And I'm like, let me be nice. So I turn over, I explain, they're like, "Oh, we can't hear you. It's not making fun of my accent." And I'm like, wow, can you imagine? Even though you're the one who doesn't know the work and you're asking for my help, you're not
and
making
you're
fun of my accent.
asking you for
I was like,
help.
I don't know the work you're asking me. Sorry, figure it out yourself. So yeah, that
Oh
was like
gosh,
the number one hindrance, like the accent. You now have to like try to like change, like twist your tongue so they can understand you
just so they
better.
can understand.
Exactly. And then when I moved there were like a lot of Nigerians, like in my like central community. Months later, I found out where like most Africans were in Philadelphia. But initially, like the only people that spoke my same language because I speak Yoruba were just my parents and my little sister.
Even I experienced something like that. Like I had like an international event to do, and it was like on Zoom because of like the pandemic and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was facilitating a workshop, and I got a text, like the Zoom text, and the
Mm-hmm.
girl said, "I cannot hear what you're saying." I was like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah, you definitely
I
you
was so
definitely experience
confused.
that a lot. Like it's like, I mean, are you saying it to be mean? Because there's some that genuinely like aren't being mean, but there's also others that are actually like just saying it to just like get like on your nerves. So you have to like,
On your
okay, are you
nerves.
being mean? Are you being nice? Like, what do you mean? Like, as Nigerians, we like enunciate our words a lot. Like we will say every syllable. So what do you mean you can't understand every? I'm breaking down every syllable for you. What do you mean you cannot understand it? It's just,
Maybe that's
it's just
I don't understand that, to be
yeah.
honest. I just leave it. That's
Americans,
like a topic
American.
sometimes
Something for another
I don't like go
day.
to. So even like coming from that and everything, like just the whole like I can't hear you, I can't hear you. I'm sure there were like stereotypical like statements that like they stated like utter to you, like saying, "Oh, do you speak African?" Like I heard that so many
Mm.
times among like immigrants. Like they always ask, like, "How did you get to like America? Did you swim?" Like, what do
Well,
you mean?
I
But like,
remember one. Oh, sorry to cut you off. Sorry, complete your question.
oh no, I was just going to ask you about the experience.
Oh, listen, if I had $1 for every startup I've had in this America, I'll have Bill Gates kind of money.
Uh-uh.
Because I guess not to fault like Americans, when you see the kind of movies you watch about Africa as a continent, you realize that they're only showing them the Sahara Desert and people who are poor, children who are hungry, and I'm like, that is not my
We are living
reality.
in the jungle.
In the jungle, that's not where I lived. I lived in a private estate in Ibadan. I had money. I went to private school all the 16 years of my life. I did not experience. I had a phone, and then like, oh my god, you guys have iPhones in America? Yeah, yeah. Sorry, in Nigeria. Yes, we have iPhones. What do you mean by you have iPhones in Nigeria? We have cars. Like, do you think we ride our elements to school or what?
I think they think we write on stone just to
They genuinely think
communicate.
that. They genuinely think that. And then I remember like one statement that still offends me to today is, as Nigerian, you know what the slang 419 means? Like it means an
Oh yeah.
internet fraudster. So I remember my first job here in America was like at a fast food restaurant, and but then I said like a very, very like noticeable accent. And this guy come up to my register, but was like, "Oh, are you from Nigeria?" And I'm like, yeah, I'm Nigerian." They're like, "Oh, can you speak 419?" I was like, I was taken aback. I was so shocked. Like I didn't know what to say. Like I was like, okay, next. I was
I'm
so
sure he just
offended.
went to Wikipedia and just like saw 419 on like Nigeria's page and was like, let me
Exactly.
try it.
Like I was like, do you
Oh,
think
God.
that's like a some kind of like funny line to like get to like know me better or whatever. I was so and still to today in this big 2022, you still see them saying things about Nigerians being Yahoo Yahoo 419. So like there's that
Yeah.
negative like identity about us out there, and people don't take time to like educate themselves. So that's like the biggest stereotype that I encountered. And then people thinking we're poor, and then when you show them your house back in Nigeria, they're like, "What? I thought you guys only lived in mud houses." No,
You
we
live
don't.
there?
Like, what? You had a phone? Yeah, we had a phone. We have cars. Like, do you think? So sometimes I'll like play. So I'll be like, oh yes, I have an elephant back home that I ride to school. Kiniko. We go to the
Lion
store
was
to
my
make.
best friend.
Yes. So sure you want to be ignorant. I'll be ignorant with you. But you meet people that want to actually know where you're from. Like I think like things like educate them. Like that, what you see in media is not what we're really like. There's something like that you have to like take time to educate.
So like even with like all this like stereotypical like moments that you've had, did that like affect learning your culture, I mean your language? Because in it's as I said, like it's hard to like learn languages already in Nigeria because of the
Mm-hmm.
pressure and everything. So even like
Yeah.
in the society in like America, how hard was it for you to learn your language? Or was there any other hindrances?
So right from when I like was born, my parents spoke Yoruba to me a lot. So we grew up speaking Yoruba and English in the house. That was like one thing I'm always thankful to them for. So all through my 60 years in Nigeria, I lived in Ibadan. Everybody around me spoke Yoruba, so my Yoruba was quite good.
Yeah, it's Ibadan.
Yeah, Ibadan Yoruba. So my
It's
Yoruba was
Yoruba.
quite good. So then I moved to the US, and then the only people who spoke my Yoruba, you spoke Yoruba, was my mom, my dad, and my sister. So in the house we spoke, like, I would say, strictly Yoruba. I just feel like there was no that there was none of that losing your language type thing. And I'll say I was pretty old. I was 16 by then, so it would have been hard for me to lose my language because I was actively trying to forget things I have learned. And then about a few months after, I started meeting more Nigerians around me. So one thing I would say about Nigerians is that we're everywhere. Anywhere you
Oh,
go to,
everywhere.
I don't say Nigerian, run. That must mean that it's extremely it has to be extremely uninhabited, because sometimes even in war zone, you still find Nigerians.
Nigerians will be there.
Nigerians will be there. So when I had moved, so in Philadelphia, I didn't realize that there's a pretty big population of Nigerians. So one day, I think my first encounter at work then I had moved to like a clothing store. I was working at a clothing store. I was hearing you, someone speaking around the phone. I was like, hold up, who is that? Like, and then I saw the guy on the phone speaking Yoruba, like very wholeheartedly. So I said hi to him. I was like, oh yeah, like we want to Nigerians a lot. So that was like definitely surprising for me. And then I started meeting more and more Nigerians, came to Drexel, met even more Nigerians. I made friends online who spoke my language. So I would say that's how I managed to like preserve like that knowledge of my language in my head, just so I didn't like lose it completely.
Yeah, like even like what you said, like I was just thinking about it. Like Nigerians are actually everywhere.
We're
Like
everywhere.
you see them in China, you see them in Canada,
Everywhere.
you see them in Russia, everywhere. Like
Russia,
it's getting
Ukraine.
scary.
It's like, that's what I'm saying. If you go somewhere you don't see Nigeria, that means that it must be extremely uninhabitable, because we're hustlers. Anywhere we can like have a comfortable life while being hardworking. Nigerians will be there. We will be there,
Like
definitely.
the fact that we're 200 million in this country and there's so many Nigerians outside.
Only God knows how
Like
many Nigerians are outside the country. We need like a very
exactly.
accurate population count, because we're. I know I saw a video on YouTube about a Nigerian man living in Antarctica with his wife.
Eh? I can't tell.
This is the coldest region. My guy, what are you looking for there? What are you
Why when
looking
you're in the
for?
hottest region in Africa, like
You know, went to polar
it's the
opposite.
coldest.
So yeah, we're definitely anywhere that we can live and like be hardworking and get like a honest living would definitely be there.
Yeah. Yeah, so like among like aside from all like the cultural shocks that you told me today,
Mm-hmm.
like what other ones were like really, really shocking? Like I mean really, really shocking, especially when it's like disrespectful in like the Yoruba culture, but like you saw it with like
Thank you for
wow.
mentioning that. So, like I said earlier, I moved back. I went back to the 11th grade here, and it was so different coming from like my school in Ibadan, because my last couple of years in secondary school, SS1 and SS3, I'd gone to a completely different school. I went to like a state government owned secondary school. So that's a whole different story. Let's not get into why I actually went. If I go into why I went to that school, that's like a whole topic. But my parents moved me from like my school. So I went to Maverick and Bodija initially from 0 to just 3, and then I got pulled to go to this Alliance School of Science in Okebola. So that was already like a culture shock for me, like coming from this private Ajabo school to this public school where everybody was like gala gala, like just be like do their own thing. So like I was like, oh my god, that was like a shock. And then when I moved to the US, and I'll see kids like talking back to their teachers, like
Oh
being
my god.
disrespectful. Like the teacher would say, sit down, like even cussing at teachers. I'm like, why are you saying teachers? Can you call F word, F word, F word? I'm like, you can't. Nigeria that you are late to assembly.
They'll
Ankere,
beat you. I
I
can't
was
even
class
imagine that.
Nigeria, I was class captain. You people in my class were making noise. Somebody farted one day in my class in Nigeria. Because I didn't know who it was. They beat everybody in the class and me extra as class captain. Now imagine that in America. Like if I said they'll take Cambridge, like what do you mean want to beat me? So like definitely seen like that kind of like there wasn't that kind of respect that we're used to in Nigeria. Where in Nigeria, every elder you must respect them. Here it was
You
like
kneel
you had
down.
to give respect to earn it from those students. There wasn't
Ah,
pay because I'm older, you must respect me. No, people will
respect me.
leave class, walk out of class. I was like, you can do that. They say, oh, there's
Wow.
detention. What detention? Nigeria, right? Kneel down, raise up your hands. In my school in Ibadan back then.
Pin drop punishments. What's the
You ride motorcycle. I was like, it was like different seeing that there wasn't that kind of like cultural respect I was accustomed to. I won't say it was necessarily bad, but it took me some getting used to. And like, even though I've been here for like a few years, I still can't like call people other than by their first name. People like, oh,
oh,
call me Barbara, call me Michael. Huh? If my mother sees me calling you your first name, Abara. So like there's
great.
definitely like that difference. Like you kind of like, yeah, you're shocked at first, but then you kind of like find a way and get used to it. Like, see, okay, what parts can I like take? What parts do I actually know to like? I don't want to, I do not want this to, like influence me at
I
all.
don't want
Kind
part
of
to
like
it.
you maneuver your way around it.
I remember you reminded me of the time. I think this was the earliest like memory of me traveling to London. And there was like this girl, I think she was 15, 16. She looked like that age. And it was obvious that she was with her boyfriend and she was like introducing her boyfriend to her father and he was shaking and I saw it. I was like,
Moya,
Mommy, 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 mommy. Like
that is a neighbor. That's all interesting. So I turned 21 in a few months, and like
oh,
I so like I still feel awkward to call my boyfriend to my mom, and it's like, hold up. A few years ago, I could not do that. Now I'm like, oh yeah, my boyfriend. And I'm like, wait, you're talking to your mom? Like, what do you mean by your boyfriend? Like, there's still that. I won't say fear, but like it's just weird talking about your African parents about like who you're dating, like who you're in a relationship with. Like, it's just but they here like they're like 13, 14 boyfriend. The parents are like meeting your boyfriend.
and they are
You can
kissing
do
in front of their
kissing,
parents.
doing
Jesus
PDA,
Lord.
holding hands, sleeping over, sleeping over.
Sleeping over. Jesus. I
Never.
could never.
My mother
Never.
was sound my face for even thinking about that.
Imagine. Oh gosh, like I know that it was like 5 years since you migrated to
Mm-hmm.
America, right? Like how are you still like adapting to the lifestyle or have you like fully adapted to it and you're like comfortable wherever you are?
Oh no,
Is it
definitely not. I don't think you ever get fully adapted because every place is not the same. So the kind of like attitudes that I've learned to like develop in Philly. So like in Philly, like when you're walking in the street, you have to like shine your eyes, be sharp, just because it's like you have to like make sure like you know where you are and like no someone actually smile. Like me when I'm walking outside, I look very neat because I'm like frowning my face. I let nobody come and approach me anyhow. And then when you go to somewhere like I'll say like California, that one is different. Like so environments are very, very different. I don't think I can ever like fully adapt to like the culture here. Even if you've been somewhere for like 50 years, there'll still be that difference that you still feel like, oh, like something is like it's just like some kind of connection missing. But what I what I always like recommend is like find your own community. Of course, you want to like be diverse and like meet people, but still like find your own people because that will really help you. Because you don't want to like you don't want to like ever lose yourself. Don't think that oh, because I'm American now I must act American. Like you are who you are. Don't let this place because one thing about America is that America will try to make you forget where you come from. If you allow that, or more on your own, no, you are lost. Make sure that while you're still adapting to your new environment, don't forget where you're coming from because that was what really helped me. I remember that where I'm coming from, oh, could really is not looking too good right now. I cannot like start acting as if everything is so good and like oh I forget where I'm coming from. Like no, definitely not.
so like in recent times like there's a lot of like issues coming up between like how immigrants are treated
Mhm.
and refugees are treated in when it comes to service like
Mhm.
because of like communication it's very hard for the refugees and immigrants to like communicate with the service workers and vice versa and
Mhm.
there's like arguments like oh it's the immigrants fault or refugees fault and oh it's the service workers fault so how do you think like America ensures that there's like sufficient communication between the two in order to
Mhm.
ensure like very like a peaceful,
Yeah.
communication.
I would say that there's still a long way to go for the like, American society to learn how to communicate with immigrants. America is a kind of country where it's like a me first country. Everybody here like prioritizes their own well being over yours. So, like for example, like the service industry, the way like as an immigrant, one very good example is like So in Nigeria, like we don't have like a really big tipping culture. Like you like, oh, I
Oh,
go out, I buy food, I pay you the amount I want to pay you. If I want to like be like, oh, of course, being like a responsible like guest, I can tip you like a few extra like naira notes or whatever, because people are like kind of like paid a kind of fair wage in like Nigerian industries. Let's say kind of. But moving
kind
here,
of.
you realize that it is even worse. The waitressing, I going to like waitressing industry. Like you go to like somewhere like Cheesecake Factory, be like apparently they are paid like below minimum wage, and they expect
Ah,
the tips to compensate for like how much they're getting paid. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. You're telling me these $1 million restaurants cannot afford to pay their workers a fair wage, and you're telling me that I'm broke to not be tipping 30%,
to
50%.
be helping.
And as immigrants, we're not used to that because it's like we don't have a very big tipping culture where we come from. So coming to where it is required, even on the receipt, they will be pointing the barrel to the receipt like, oh, won't you tip gratuity? If you go out in like groups of five, like whenever me and my friends go out, they and like more than five, they'll like put a automatic gratuity or tip on it and still to not tip extra again. Like what is going on? That makes no sense. Like so I would say that's the um biggest problem I've seen occur between like service workers and immigrants, where service workers think that, oh, when they see a table of like immigrants, they're like, ah, I won't serve them with you because they will not tip me. And we were like, what do you mean? Like the blame should not be on me. It should be blaming the people that hired you for not paying you fairly. So that's like I feel like as a society we have a long way to go when it comes to like addressing communication barriers between immigrants and like service workers in this country, because we come from like two different cultures, two different school of thoughts, and we still have to like try to figure out how to like work around each other. We still have a long way to go. I would say I don't think it's definitely like all rosy. Mm-mm. No.
Oh. Like, I have a question. Like the tip,
Mm-hmm.
when you give like the tip, does it go like 100% like go to the waitress, or like is it shared
It depends.
business?
It depends on the place. Some places you tip the waitress, it goes to the waitress. Some places it goes to everybody who worked that day. So
Eh?
waitress, so that served you, other waitresses in the back or waiters in the back, and the cooks also. So you can see why like they are very, very like, and that's most places for you. Some places like you see all those videos that they say, oh, I gave my waiter $5K. Can you come? It
$5K.
barely goes to the person, you know. They'll still split it with like the people in the back, manager, everything. So like that's why they're very like adamant about like tip, because they do need that money, because they're paid like under minimum wage, which can't live with, and they still want you to like tip extra, so just so they can get like take a good pay home. So yeah, it's definitely
I
it's a
didn't
very
even know it was that
sketchy.
bad.
I didn't realize too. And then now that I
Thanks.
know, I make sure that if I'm ordering something, like at least include tip money in the money I'm taking out, just because I can't imagine having to work. Because I think okay, so in Philly, minimum wage is I think $7.50, which is very little. Which is you can't live on that money, $7 per hour. Now imagine getting
Wow.
paid like $3 per hour as a waitress. So of course you need like tip to supplement that income you're making, because it's not enough for you. Imagine having kids, you can't get by on
And
$5 per hour.
this,
You still need that tip to supplement what you're making. So it's definitely I can see from like both sides. Like as like the customer, I think your restaurant should pay you a fair wage. And as the service worker, I think that while they owe me money, like I also want to I want to just get by that day. So I see there's why there's like a discrepancy.
I thought it was only Nigeria, because I know in Nigeria, like they normally like tip with like POS, and
Mm-hmm.
immediately that business, no one is touching that money.
Yep.
Not
Yep.
you even see strikes that they are taking
Yes.
the money from. Ah,
Yes. So
Nigeria,
like
too many
when I
strikes.
tip, I do cash tips. So it's like I would like, hey, take this money. It is for you. I won't even put on the receipt that I tipped. I'll put $0 on it. I'll put $0 tip on it, and I'll still tip you cash, just because so that money can go to you. But why is sharing the small money I gave you with everybody in the back? It makes sense. Makes
Doesn't
sense
make
at all.
sense.
Doesn't make sense.
So, lastly, like, what advice do you give to any person who's still trying to cope in like America or any other country that
Mm-hmm.
is like they're seen as a minority, or they just have don't have like a community yet?
I will say it gets very lonely when you're in somewhere where, because look, think about it. When I grew up in Ibadan, I grew up with like my cousins and my aunts and my grandparents. So I had people I could go to any weekend. I wasn't ever lonely. And then moving here, it just became like me and my three other family members. So I think people talk about like, oh, there's a loneliness abroad. True, there's loneliness, but think about the fact that the environment you're in fosters growth. Coming from Nigeria, you get what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
there's no favorable like environment in Nigeria to like foster people's talents and creativity. In America, you have a chance to at least prove yourself. So one thing I always recommend is that find your own community in America. Even if it's like people who speak from a different country, people speak a different language. Find people that have the same ideals as you. People who can help you get by during your tough days. Whether it's people that are from like your same tribe, a different country, a different gender, people that shall understand you as a person, that will always put your concerns and matters first. People who actually want to like who are genuine friends. I always recommend that. Find your community. Don't start like sideline yourself that, oh, from work to school to the house. Mm-mm. Go out, meet people. Check on Facebook for the Nigerian community. Nigerians, what there's always like a Nigerian community. London Nigerian
Every
community. You have find people. Go out, go to parties, meet people, make friends. Like, don't ever try like just like see by yourself that, oh, I'm shy. I'm not see, like I told you earlier, I'm pretty shy and awkward around like strangers. But like when I got to Drexel, I met my roommate Ebon. I met Chidera, Moby, Jasmine, Layo, and I got to like make my own community of friends, people that I can just call any day, guy, I'm bored, let's go out. Yesterday, I met my friends out unannounced. Like people like your family. You like always find that connection. So I always recommend that. Like make sure you find your own people, find your tiny village, no matter how small it is. Someone that will always put you first.
your support system.
That's the word. Support system, definitely. You will need that. Or else you just go mental in this country. Honestly.
Oh, gosh. So I think
Honestly.
that's all. So thank you, Maddie, for
Thank you so
joining
much for
me
having me. I
on
really
this
enjoyed the
journey.
discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the viewers, just stay tuned for the next episode. And if you like what you heard, you want your child to be involved in this whole process, you can go to k3voicesonlinelearning.com. All right, remember to see yourself even if the world is blind, reflect, connect, and transcend every internal barrier that would try to cage your voice. And remember to be cage free and be amazing like a Maddie Akinyele.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Moyo.